The sun hangs high and indifferent in the porcelain blue sky, its heat baking the manicured lawns of Sterling Estates into a state of perpetual, thirsty perfection. This is a neighborhood built on silent agreements and unspoken rules, a kingdom of two-story colonials and three-car garages where the rustle of leaves is the loudest sound for miles. It is a world sealed under a bell jar of wealth and privilege. And Officer Vince Miller is its self-appointed gatekeeper. He cruises in his patrol car, a shark in a sea of minnows, the air conditioning blasting a sterile chill against his thick, uniformed arms. Miller is a man carved from granite and prejudice. His jaw is a permanent clench, his eyes two chips of ice scanning for anything that feels out of place, anything that offends his rigid, colorless sense of order. He sees the world not in shades of gray, but in the stark, simple terms of black and white. Us and them. Clean and dirty. Rightful and trespassing. His gaze sweeps over the identical, pristine houses, the emerald grass, the vibrant flower beds bursting with petunias and impatience. Then it snags. It catches on a figure that does not belong. A stain on the canvas. There, in the front yard of the corner lot, the biggest and most impressive house on the block, a man is on his knees in the dirt. He is a black man. He wears simple, worn jeans and a faded gray t-shirt stained with sweat and soil. He is tending to the rose bushes, his hands, bare and capable, expertly pruning a dead branch. To Miller, the image is a screeching alarm. It is a puzzle piece from the wrong box, an error in the code of his perfect, orderly world. A gardener, he thinks. But the landscaping crews come on Tuesdays. It is Friday. And there is no company truck parked anywhere in sight. The gears of suspicion, well-oiled from years of practice, begin to turn in Miller's mind. He slows the cruiser to a crawl, the tires whispering on the hot asphalt. He observes the man. The man, Marcus Thorne, is humming softly to himself, a low, bluesy tune that seems to rise from the earth itself. He feels a deep satisfaction in this work, in the feel of the soil, the sharp scent of the cut stems, the vibrant life of the flowers he nurtures. This garden is his sanctuary. This house is his home. This block, this entire sprawling subdivision, is his creation. He does not notice the police car at first, so lost is he in his quiet communion with the roses. But then he feels it. A change in the atmosphere. A cold weight of observation that prickles the back of his neck. He looks up slowly, his hand still holding the pruning shears. The black and white cruiser is stopped in the street, idling like a predator. Behind the wheel, a silhouette watches him. Marcus feels a familiar weariness settle into his bones, a feeling as old as his own history. He knows this look. He knows this stillness. He knows what is coming next. Officer Miller kills the engine, the sudden silence amplifying the tension. He steps out of the car, the door closing with a solid, authoritative thud. He is a large man, and he uses his size as a tool, an instrument of intimidation. He adjusts his belt, his hand resting casually on the butt of his sidearm. "Afternoon," Miller says, his voice a low rumble that carries no warmth. Marcus remains on one knee, looking up at the officer. "Officer," he replies, his own voice even and calm. "Bit of a hot day to be playing in the dirt," Miller observes, his eye scanning Marcus from head to toe, lingering on the sweat stains, the dirt under his fingernails. The assessment is quick, brutal, and final. "You do not belong here." "The roses need the attention," Marcus says simply, refusing to be baited. Miller takes a few steps onto the perfect lawn, his heavy boots leaving slight indentations in the grass. He is violating the sanctity of the space, and he knows it. He wants Marcus to know it, too. "Whose property is this?" Miller asks, though the question is a formality. He already has his answer. "It's mine," Marcus says. The words hang in the hot, still air. Miller's lips twitch into a smirk, a small, ugly thing. "Right. And I'm the King of England." He lets out a short, sharp bark of a laugh. "Let's try that again. Who do you work for?" "What landscaping company?" "I don't work for a company," Marcus repeats, his patience a thin, fraying thread. "I live here." This is my house. He gestures with his shears toward the grand, two-story brick home behind him, with its gleaming windows and stately entrance. The gesture only deepens Miller's contemptuous disbelief. Your house, he says, drawing the words out with mocking slowness. Son, I've been patrolling this neighborhood for 10 years. I know who lives here. And you ain't it. Marcus slowly gets to his feet, brushing the dirt from his jeans. He is taller than he appeared on his knees, and there is a quiet dignity in his posture that irritates Miller on a primal level. It is a dignity he feels is unearned. I moved in 3 months ago, Marcus states, his voice still level, still controlled. He will not give this man the satisfaction of a reaction. 3 months, Miller scoffs. Funny. I must have missed the parade. He steps closer, invading Marcus's personal space, forcing him to tilt his head back slightly. The sun glints off Miller's badge, a star of blinding, absolute authority. I'm gonna need to see some identification, Miller demands. And some proof of residence. My wallet is inside, Marcus says. Convenient, Miller sneers. Tell you what. You stay right here. Don't move a muscle. I'm going to run your description. See if anyone's reported a suspicious individual casing the neighborhood. The insult is deliberate, a poisoned dart aimed to wound. Casing. The word implies intent, criminality. It reduces Marcus from a resident to a predator. There's no need for that, officer, Marcus says, a hard edge now creeping into his voice. I am telling you, I live here. I can go inside and get my driver's license. And I'm telling you to stay put, Miller snaps, his voice rising in volume. You think you can give me orders? On my beat. A younger officer, Riley, gets out of the passenger side of the cruiser. He is new, his uniform still crisp, his face etched with a nervous uncertainty. He watches the interaction, his hand hovering near his own belt, a silent, anxious shadow of his senior partner. Everything okay here, Vince? Riley asks, his voice thin. Just dealing with a trespasser who thinks he's the lord of the manor, Miller says, never taking his eyes off Marcus. Claims he lives here. Riley looks from his partner's bulldog scowl to Marcus's calm, defiant face, then to the magnificent house behind him. Doubt flickers in the young officer's eyes. Maybe we should just let him get his ID, Riley suggests tentatively. Miller shoots him a look of pure venom. Are you questioning my procedure, rookie? You think this guy, he jabs a thick finger toward Marcus, fits the demographic of Sterling Estates? Use your eyes. The word hangs there. Demographic. It is a clinical, sanitized word for a raw, ugly prejudice. Marcus feels the last of his composure begin to crack. He has spent a lifetime building, creating, achieving. He has poured his soul and his fortune into creating not just a home for himself, but a community for others, a place of beauty and safety. And in this moment, on his own front lawn, he is being reduced to a demographic. An anomaly. A threat. Officer, Marcus says, his voice now dangerously low. You are on my property. You are harassing me without cause. I suggest you either get a warrant or you get off my lawn. This is a mistake. He knows it as soon as the words leave his mouth. He has challenged the lion in his own den. Miller's face flushes a deep, angry red. His smirk vanishes, replaced by a mask of pure fury. Oh, you're suggesting now, are you? He hisses, stepping so close that Marcus can smell the stale coffee on his breath. You're giving me legal advice? He pokes Marcus in the chest with his finger. A hard, jabbing motion. Let me tell you something. You don't have any rights here, because you don't belong here. You are a suspect. And you are going to do exactly as I say. He turns his head slightly, speaking to the rookie over his shoulder. Riley. Call it in. Suspicious male, refusing to identify, possible B and E in progress. Get a couple more units over here. This one's got a mouth on him. Riley hesitates for a fraction of a second. But Vince, he hasn't actually done anything, he mutters, just loud enough for Miller to hear. He's breathing on my beat, Miller snarls back. That's enough. Make the call. Defeated, Riley turns and walks back to the car, his shoulders slumped. Miller turns his full, undivided attention back to Marcus. The pretense of professional procedure is gone. This is personal now. You want to play tough guy, Miller says, his voice a menacing purr. I love it when you guys play tough guy. Makes the paperwork so much easier to write. He looks at the pruning shears still clutched in Marcus's hand. And look at that. You're armed. Assaulting an officer. Resisting arrest. I can put you away for years, friend. Years. I'll make sure you never set foot in a neighborhood like this again, unless it's to collect the trash. The threat is delivered with a chilling certainty, the casual cruelty of a man who has destroyed lives before and will do so again without a second thought. He believes in his power. It is absolute. It is divine. He is the law. And then, he crosses the line. His eyes drift past Marcus, to a small, brightly colored tricycle lying on its side near the front porch. A flicker of something vile crosses his face. Got a kid? Miller asks, his tone dripping with false sweetness. Marcus says nothing. His heart turns to ice. That's a real shame, Miller continues, shaking his head in mock pity. A real shame for a kid to have to visit his daddy in prison. People like you. You don't raise families here. You don't build things. You just break them. That is it. The final straw. The world seems to slow down. The humming of the insects fades. The heat of the sun on his skin disappears. All Marcus feels is a cold, diamond-hard rage solidifying in his chest. This man has not just insulted him. He has brought his daughter into it. He has desecrated the sanctity of his home, of his family. He has judged his entire existence based on the color of his skin and the dirt on his hands. Marcus's expression changes. The last vestiges of patience and weariness evaporate, replaced by a focused, terrifying calm. He carefully places the pruning shears on the grass. He straightens to his full height. He looks Officer Vince Miller directly in the eye. And for the first time, Miller sees something other than a defiant suspect. He sees a depth of power he cannot comprehend. He sees an intelligence that is ancient and formidable. It unnerves him, but he shoves the feeling down, burying it under another layer of aggression. Finally decided to cooperate. Miller sneers, reaching for his handcuffs. Hands behind your back. Now. No, Marcus says. The word is not shouted. It is spoken softly, but with the weight of an anvil. It stops Miller cold. What did you just say to me? I said no, Marcus repeats, his gaze unwavering. You are not putting me in handcuffs. You are not arresting me. What you are going to do, Officer Miller, is stand here and wait. Your entire world is about to change. Miller stares at him, baffled by the sheer audacity. This is not how it goes. They yell, they run, they fight, they beg. They do not stand there and pronounce judgment upon him. You're insane, Miller sputters, finally finding his voice. You're going to jail, and you're going to learn a lesson you will never. He is cut off by a sound. A soft, purring sound that grows steadily louder. Down the sun-drenched street, a car is approaching. It is a sleek, black sedan, the kind of car that costs more than Miller makes in 3 years. It moves with a silent, effortless grace, its tinted windows reflecting the perfect houses like distorted mirrors. The car does not drive past. It slows, and with impossible smoothness, pulls into the driveway of the house. Marcus's house. It parks directly behind his own modest sedan. The engine cuts out. For a moment, nothing happens. Miller and Marcus stand frozen on the lawn, a tableau of suspended conflict. Riley watches from the cruiser, his mouth slightly agape. Then, the driver's side door of the black sedan opens. A woman emerges. She is the polar opposite of the scene she has entered. She wears a tailored, razor-sharp charcoal suit, her silver hair pulled back in a severe, elegant bun. Her face is a study in calm, formidable intelligence. She carries a slim leather briefcase in one hand. She closes the car door with a soft, expensive click and begins to walk toward them, her heels making no sound on the paved driveway. She does not look at Officer Miller. Her eyes are fixed solely on Marcus. "Marcus," she says, her voice as crisp and cool as her attire. "I apologize for the delay. The traffic on the interstate was unexpectedly dense." "It's no problem, Amelia," Marcus replies, his tone now relaxed, almost conversational. "You've arrived at the perfect time." Miller watches this exchange, his mind struggling to process the information. Who is this woman? A lawyer? He feels a small, cold knot of unease begin to form in his stomach. Amelia Vance stops a few feet away, her presence radiating an aura of untouchable competence. Only now does she deign to look at Officer Miller. Her gaze is not angry or confrontational. It is worse. It is dissecting. It is the look a biologist gives a specimen under a microscope. "Officer," she says, her voice flat and devoid of emotion. "You seem to be under a misapprehension. This man is a trespasser," Miller blurts out, trying to reclaim control of the situation, to reassert his authority. "He's being detained pending an investigation." Amelia raises a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "Detained for what, precisely?" "The crime of gardening on his own property." "He refuses to show ID," Miller counters, his voice taking on a defensive, whining edge. "He can't prove he lives here." "An unfortunate inconvenience," Amelia says smoothly. "One which I am here to rectify." She places her briefcase on the hood of the patrol car, the metal groaning slightly under the unexpected weight. She opens it with 2 sharp clicks. The interior is not filled with legal pads and pens. It is a mobile command center, with a small, integrated tablet and neatly filed stacks of documents. Miller's eyes widen. This is not some public defender. This is something else entirely. "Let us begin with the most pressing issue," Amelia says, her voice taking on the cadence of a surgeon about to make the first incision. "The matter of residence." She pulls out a thick document bound in a clear plastic cover. She does not hand it to Miller. She holds it up for him to see, her fingers pointing to the relevant lines as she speaks. "This is the grant deed for the property located at 1 Sterling Way. As you can see, the registered owner is one Marcus Thorne. My client." Miller squints at the paper. He sees the official seal. He sees the name. The knot in his stomach tightens into a cold, hard fist. He made a mistake. A bad one. But his arrogance, his years of unchecked power, will not allow him to admit it. "Okay," he says, forcing a casual tone. "Fine. So he lives here." He still failed to identify himself. That's obstruction. He is grasping at straws, trying to salvage a sliver of justification for his actions. Amelia's lips curve into a smile that holds no warmth, no humor. It is a smile of utter, predatory victory. "Oh, officer," she says softly. "We are so far beyond a simple failure to identify." She turns her attention back to the briefcase. "You see, Mr. Thorne is a very private man. He values his peace. He values his family's safety. Which is why, when he purchased this property, he also took certain precautions." She produces another document, this one even thicker than the first. It is a portfolio, filled with corporate filings and LLC charters. Mr. Thorne was so taken with the craftsmanship and potential of this neighborhood that he felt it was a sound investment, Amelia continues, her voice a relentless, cutting monotone. "He didn't just buy this house." She flips a page. "He bought the house next to it. And the one next to that." She flips another page. "And another. In fact," she says, looking up to meet Miller's stunned, disbelieving gaze, "he bought every single house on this block. All 12 of them. A strangled noise escapes Miller's throat. Riley, who has crept closer to see what is happening, takes an involuntary step back, his eyes wide with shock. But Amelia is not finished. She is merely warming up. But why stop there, she asks, a rhetorical question hanging in the scorching air. Ownership provides control. It provides security. So, after acquiring the properties, Mr. Thorne's investment firm then acquired the development company that built Sterling Estates in the first place. She taps a final, damning document. Which means, Officer Miller, she says, her voice dropping to a near whisper, that you are not standing on a public street. You are standing on a private road, which is owned and maintained by my client's corporation. You are not harassing a citizen on your beat. You are, in fact, trespassing on private property. The power dynamic in the air does not just shift. It shatters. It inverts with the force of a physical explosion. One moment, Officer Vince Miller was the king of this small universe, a man of unquestionable authority. The next, he is a common trespasser, a belligerent intruder standing on the private land of the man he was trying to arrest. His face, which had been flushed with rage, drains of all color. It becomes a pasty, sickly white. A sheen of cold sweat breaks out on his forehead. That's not possible, he stammers, his voice a pathetic croak. I assure you, Amelia says, snapping the briefcase shut, the sound like a gavel falling, the paperwork is impeccable. She pulls out her phone. And my client, being the meticulous man that he is, has outfitted all of his properties with state-of-the-art, high-definition security systems. Systems that record both audio and video. Systems that have been active for this entire encounter. She taps the screen. I have already forwarded a copy of the last 15 minutes of footage to my office. And to a few other interested parties. Marcus, who has remained silent throughout this systematic dismantling, finally speaks. You mentioned my demographic, officer, he says, his voice calm and resonant. You should know, my primary business is data analysis. I build predictive models. I understand demographics better than you could possibly imagine. And I know the demographic for officers with your complaint history. Miller flinches as if struck. Oh, I don't have a history. Oh, but you do, Amelia interjects, her eyes glittering. 6 formal complaints in the last 4 years. All for racial profiling. All of them dismissed by your department's internal affairs, of course. But complaints leave a paper trail. And I do so love following a paper trail. She glances down the street. In the distance, 2 more police cars are approaching, their lights flashing but sirens silent. And behind them, a white news van. It seems your backup is arriving, Amelia notes. As is mine. Miller's mind is a maelstrom of panic. He is trapped. The foundations of his world, built on the bedrock of his own perceived superiority and the power of his badge, have been turned to sand. He looks for an escape, a way to rewind time, to unsay the words, to undo the actions. He finds none. He turns to his rookie partner, a desperate plea in his eyes. Riley. You saw it. He was being belligerent. He was non-compliant. But Riley is no longer looking at him with deference. The young officer is looking at him with a mixture of fear and dawning contempt. Riley knows he is standing on the deck of a sinking ship, and his captain is the one who drilled the holes in the hull. The other police cars pull up, and a sergeant, a weary-looking man named Davis, gets out of the lead vehicle. He sees Miller, white as a sheet. He sees the impossibly expensive lawyer and the black man in gardening clothes who somehow looks more in command than anyone. He sees the news van pulling to a stop, a reporter and a cameraman spilling out like hunters sensing a kill. Miller, Sergeant Davis says, his voice heavy with dread. What in God's name did you do now? Before Miller can stammer out a response, Amelia steps forward. Sergeant Davis, she says, her voice projecting with effortless authority. My name is Amelia Vance. I represent Mr. Marcus Thorne, the owner of this property and, as it happens, this entire subdivision. Your officer," she gestures dismissively toward Miller, "has been engaged in a pattern of harassment, unlawful detention, and verbal assault against my client, all of which has been recorded." The cameraman from the news van is already filming, the red light on his camera a malevolent eye. Miller's composure finally, completely shatters. The fear and panic curdle into a desperate, pathetic rage. "She's lying," he shrieks, his voice cracking. "He was casing the place. He's a criminal. Look at him. He doesn't belong here." He points a trembling finger at Marcus, his face contorted into an ugly mask of hate. And in that moment, he proves every accusation against him. He self-incriminates with a finality that is almost poetic. He confirms his prejudice for the entire world, and the camera, to see. Sergeant Davis's face hardens. He has seen this movie before with Miller. He had hoped it would never get a wide release. "Vince, shut your mouth," Davis orders, his voice like grinding gravel. But Miller is beyond reason. He is a cornered animal, lashing out with his last remaining weapon, his bigotry. "You all see it, don't you?" he screams, his voice raw. "He doesn't fit. You led them in one at a time and soon they take over everything. This was a good neighborhood. A safe neighborhood." Amelia Vance simply holds up her phone again. She presses a button. And from the small speaker, Miller's own voice, captured in perfect clarity by the hidden microphone Marcus was wearing, fills the sudden, horrified silence. "You think you can give me orders? On my beat? Use your eyes. You think this guy fits the demographic of Sterling Estates? I'll make sure you never set foot in a neighborhood like this again, unless it's to collect the trash." And then, the final, most damning line. "People like you. You don't raise families here. You don't build things. You just break them." The recording ends. The silence that follows is absolute. It is heavier and more profound than any sound. Every person present has just heard the unfiltered thoughts of Vince Miller's heart. They have heard the poison that has driven his career, his life, his every interaction with men like Marcus Thorne. Miller stands frozen, his own words hanging in the air like his own death sentence. The blood drains from his face, leaving it the color of ash. He looks around, his eyes wild with the dawning, horrific realization of his complete and total self-destruction. He sees the disgust on Sergeant Davis's face. He sees the cold pity in Officer Riley's eyes. He sees the unblinking red light of the news camera. He sees the triumphant, icy calm of Amelia Vance. And finally, he looks at Marcus Thorne. Marcus has not moved. His expression is not one of anger or triumph. It is one of profound, sorrowful judgment. The police chief arrives then, a flurry of lights and sirens, drawn by the escalating chaos. Chief Reynolds is a politician in a uniform, a man who can smell a public relations disaster from a mile away. He takes one look at the scene, the millionaire, the high-powered lawyer, the news crew, and his own officer ranting on camera, and knows this is not a disaster. This is an extinction-level event. He confers with Sergeant Davis in a hushed, frantic whisper. Amelia Vance simply waits, a statue of patient victory. After a moment, Chief Reynolds strides forward, his face a mask of grim determination. He is in full damage control mode. He stops directly in front of the sputtering, defeated Vince Miller. "Officer Miller," the chief says, his voice booming for the cameras, for the record. "You are relieved of duty, effective immediately. Sergeant, secure his weapon and his badge. Public humiliation. Swift. Brutal." Sergeant Davis approaches Miller, his face unreadable. "Vince. Give it to me." Miller stares at him, uncomprehending. "What?" "Chief, you can't." "Now, Sergeant," the chief barks. With a heavy reluctance that is part duty and part disgust, Sergeant Davis unholsters Miller's sidearm. He unclips the badge from Miller's chest, the fabric ripping slightly. The silver shield, the symbol of all his power and all his corruption, is gone. He is just a man now. A large, sweating, terrified man in a blue costume. "An Officer Riley," the chief says, turning to the rookie. Riley stiffens, expecting to be cast into the fire with his partner. "Place former Officer Miller under arrest." A collective gasp ripples through the small crowd of neighbors that has begun to gather. Riley's eyes go wide. "Sir? On what charge?" "Assault. Harassment. Violation of civil rights." "Take your pick," the chief says, his eyes cold as steel. "We'll let the D sort it out. Cuff him." The karmic justice of the moment is breathtaking. The young officer, the one Miller had bullied and belittled, is now tasked with arresting him. Riley approaches his former training officer, his movements stiff and uncertain. He pulls out his handcuffs. "Vince." "Turn around," Riley says, his voice barely a whisper. Miller stares at him, his mind finally broken. He offers no resistance. He turns, a hollowed-out shell of a man, and allows the rookie to cuff his hands behind his back on the perfect green lawn of the man he tried to ruin. The click of the handcuffs is the loudest sound in the world. It is the sound of a career ending. A life imploding. A monster being caged. As Riley leads the now shuffling, silent Vince Miller toward a patrol car, Marcus Thorne speaks one last time, his voice cutting through the air, clear and precise, for all to hear. "I needed you to see," he says, his words directed at the shell of the former officer. "I needed the world to see how you treat people when you think no one is watching. When you think they have nothing. You didn't see a man tending his garden. You saw a threat to your world. But it was never your world to begin with. It was just your prison. The fallout is not just a storm. It is a cleansing fire." The story of Marcus Thorne and Vince Miller explodes across the national news. The footage from the news van, combined with the crystal-clear audio from Marcus's hidden microphone, becomes a viral sensation, a masterclass in the swift, brutal downfall of a bigot. For Vince Miller, the end is absolute. He is fired, of course. His union, seeing the irrefutable evidence and the public outcry, refuses to represent him, cutting him loose in a terse, one-sentence press release. The district attorney, facing immense pressure, brings a raft of charges: official oppression, false imprisonment, and, most damningly, a federal charge for violation of civil rights under color of law. Miller's trial is short. Amelia Vance ensures that the prosecution has every piece of evidence, including a detailed dossier on Miller's past complaints, which are now reopened and investigated with a vigor previously absent. 3 other victims come forward, their stories mirroring Marcus's almost exactly, but without the satisfying conclusion. They had no hidden wealth, no powerful lawyer waiting in the wings. They were just ordinary people whose lives had been damaged by the casual cruelty of one powerful man. Their testimony seals Miller's fate. He is found guilty on all counts. The judge, a stern, no-nonsense woman who watched the video with the rest of the country, delivers a scathing sentencing. "You were entrusted with a badge and a gun to protect and serve the community," she declares, her voice ringing with contempt. "Instead, you used them as a shield for your own prejudice and a hammer to terrorize those you swore to protect. You poisoned a well of public trust. You are not an officer of the law. You are a disgrace to it." Vince Miller is sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. No parole. His pension is seized to pay restitution to his victims. His wife files for divorce before the verdict is even read. His life, as he knew it, is over. He is no longer a gatekeeper. He is just another inmate, stripped of his name, his power, and his pride, lost in the very system he once wielded like a weapon. The consequences for the police department are nearly as severe. Marcus Thorne, with Amelia Vance at the helm, files a massive civil lawsuit against the city and the department, not for money, but for change. The lawsuit uncovers a systemic pattern of ignoring complaints against officers like Miller. Chief Reynolds is forced to resign in disgrace. The department is placed under a federal consent decree, forcing a complete overhaul of its policies on use of force, racial bias training, and internal affairs investigations. Dozens of other officers with similar complaint histories are rooted out, retrained, or fired. The entire corrupt culture is torn down to the studs. For the heroes of the story, the rewards are as profound as the villain's punishments. Officer Riley becomes the star witness at Miller's trial. He testifies truthfully and unflinchingly about the events of that day and about the toxic culture Miller fostered. He is initially ostracized by some of his fellow officers, but he is hailed as a hero by the public and the reformed leadership of the department. Marcus Thorne, seeing the young man's integrity, makes him an offer. Through his newly established foundation, he offers Riley a full scholarship to law school. "We need more people like you on the other side of the courtroom," Marcus tells him. Riley accepts. He leaves the force and dedicates himself to becoming a prosecutor, specializing in police misconduct cases. He will spend his career ensuring that men like Vince Miller are held accountable. Amelia Vance's law firm becomes one of the most respected civil rights firms in the nation. She is inundated with cases, a beacon of hope for those who have been wronged by the system. She becomes a legend, the woman who dismantled a corrupt police officer with a briefcase and a deed. And Marcus Thorne, the quiet gardener, the reluctant millionaire, finds a new purpose. He accepts the settlement from his lawsuit, a staggering sum, and uses every penny to create the Thorne Justice Initiative. His foundation has a simple, powerful mission: to fight housing discrimination, fund legal aid for victims of police brutality, and invest in communities that have been systematically neglected. He doesn't just write checks. He is hands-on, using his genius for data analysis to identify corrupt systems and his vast resources to dismantle them. He uses his development company not to build exclusive enclaves like Sterling Estates, but to create beautiful, affordable, high-quality housing in neighborhoods that need it most. He becomes a builder in the truest sense of the word. He builds homes. He builds communities. He builds justice. 2 years later. The sun hangs high in the sky, but here, its heat is not oppressive. It filters through the leaves of newly planted oak trees, dappling the laughing faces of children playing in a state-of-the-art playground. This is not Sterling Estates. This is the grand opening of the Oakwood Community Center, a gleaming facility with a library, a gym, and after-school programs, built in the heart of a once-forgotten neighborhood. It was the first project of the Thorne Justice Initiative. Marcus Thorne stands on the steps, not in a suit, but in the same simple jeans and a comfortable shirt. He is not giving a speech. He is watching a group of teenagers learn to code on new computers in the tech lab he funded. He is watching families share a meal at the community picnic he organized. A young man in a sharp suit approaches him, a warm smile on his face. It is Ethan Riley, Esquire, freshly graduated from law school, now a junior prosecutor in the DA's office. "Quite a place you've built here, Marcus," Riley says, his voice filled with admiration. "We built it," Marcus corrects him gently. "All of us." They stand in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the vibrant life of the community hub. "I saw his name on the prison transfer list last week," Riley says quietly. Marcus knows who he means. They moved him to a lower security facility upstate. "Good behavior." Marcus nods, his expression thoughtful. "I hope he finds some kind of peace," he says, and he means it. His battle was never with Vince Miller the man. It was with the arrogance, the prejudice, the systemic poison that created him. That battle was won, not just on his front lawn that day, but here, in the creation of something new and hopeful. Arrogance is a prison with walls of its own making. It shrinks a person's world until all they can see is a distorted reflection of their own superiority. Vince Miller believed his power came from his badge, from his ability to control, to diminish, to exclude. He built his world on the flimsy foundation of hate, and watched it all crumble to dust. His world is now a 6-by-9-foot cell. Marcus Thorne found his power in the soil, in the patient act of nurturing life. He knew that true strength isn't about building walls to keep people out, but about opening doors to let them in. He defeated a system of hate not by destroying it, but by building something better in its place. His world, once confined to the unjust judgment of a single man, has expanded to encompass entire communities, his reach defined only by the hope he creates. He turns to Riley, a genuine smile lighting up his face. "Come on," he says, clapping him on the shoulder. "I promised some of the kids I'd teach them how to tend the new rose garden out front." And together, they walk back into the sunlight, leaving the ghosts of the past behind, ready to cultivate a better future.